Hey friends, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm making a mashed potato recipe that originated in Ireland. Potatoes have always been associated with Ireland, so what better place to look for new potato recipes? The dish I'll be making is COLCANNON. The word originates from a term that means white-headed cabbage, but many people also make this with kale. Today I'll be using the white cabbage. Like many beloved recipes that are handed down from generation to generation, everyone has their own way of making this recipe. I tried to find the most original recipes, and it seemed like most of those included cabbage, potatoes, butter, green onions, and buttermilk. I don't have buttermilk. Some people also use whipping cream or milk. I'm actually not going to use any of those in mine today. I have about 3 cups of diced cabbage. I tried to make those bite-sized pieces, and then for the potatoes, I just cleaned these very well and left the skins on. The skins have fiber in them, which is very important to health and has benefits for blood sugar control and lowering cholesterol. And besides, I think the skins are delicious. I'm going to cut these very thin so that I can boil these in some salted water, and by the time they're finished boiling, they'll be perfectly seasoned. Later on in the video, I'll be using the leftovers from this recipe to make some delicious potato cakes. I'm making this dish with potatoes and cabbage, but you can use this recipe to make a one-pot meal and add in a protein. One of my viewers likes to add in small pieces of ham to this dish. You can also use this as a side dish for corned beef, or you could top it with the meat like this. I also like the idea of adding some savory mushrooms in a brown gravy on the top. That actually sounds really good, and I haven't done that in a while. I rinsed my potatoes before adding them to the water, and then I added salt. I've seen recipes that call for either leeks or white onion, so really if you have any of those, it'll work. And of course you could always sub in some onion powder for the onions. I'll be using both the white end and also the green, and there's only a very small portion in the middle of this that I'm not going to use, and that can be saved for some vegetable broth. The white's going to give it a nice flavor, and then the green ends will give us some color. My potatoes are tender now, so I'm going to reserve a few cups of this broth before draining these. I may need to use this in the potatoes. I tried a bite of one of the potatoes and it was perfectly seasoned. I bought this butter specifically for this recipe. I don't always use butter, but it is delicious, and I wanted to make this as original as possible, but obviously you can just use oil if you want. I read lots and lots of different recipes for this dish, including many of the ratings on those dishes, just to try to get an idea of how to best cook this. Sometimes people can take a recipe and make it, and their dish will be bland, when another person will make the same exact recipe, and theirs will be full of flavor. I think this is one of those recipes where that could easily be the case. And also, I think many times when someone says that a recipe is bland, it's another way of saying that they didn't add enough salt to the dish or that they didn't cook it properly. I don't want my potatoes to be completely smooth, so I'm just going to do a quick hand mash on these. Okay, let's talk about flavor again. Some recipes said to cook your cabbage for 3 to 4 minutes before adding them into your mashed potatoes. And I did do that with the first batch of cabbage. I also added in about half of the green onions, but I decided that this was not enough cabbage. So I ended up making another 3 cups, so a total of 6 cups of cabbage. And I made sure to salt the cabbage each time because you always season in layers to get the most flavorful dish. But at this point, I was thinking not only was this not enough cabbage, but the cabbage really didn't cook long enough to caramelize and get that deeply sweet, seasoned flavor. And neither did the onions. So with my next cabbage, I made sure to cook this much longer. And I even added in a ladle of the potato broth so that it could simmer a good long while. And what a difference this made. This was probably some of the best cabbage I've ever had in my life. It was just so good. I would definitely make this as a side dish just on its own. There's even a song dedicated to this dish. It's written from someone reminiscing about childhood and the delight they felt when their mother made them this dish. It says, "Well, did you ever make colcannon, made with a lovely pickled cream, with the greens and scallions mingled, like a picture in a dream?" Notice the pickled cream here. Most people think that means buttermilk. You could also use sour cream or non-fat Greek yogurt, or you could make your own buttermilk with a combination of milk and vinegar. However, I'm just going to add some vinegar in with the potato broth and then mix that in and see how I like it. I tried it in a small amount first just to make sure that I was going to like this, and I thought it was delicious. I can see why the original recipe calls for buttermilk. It does make sense because the acidity in that makes a perfect balance to the richness of that sweet cabbage. I used some additional potato broth to thin these out. Then I topped them with some more black pepper and thin sliced scallions. These potatoes were delicious. I'm glad I ended up cooking the cabbage longer the second time. I think it really added to the flavor. If a person didn't have as much time on their hands, they could always try this with instant potatoes. I grabbed this packet because one of my viewers said this was really good, and I haven't tried it yet, but I do plan to very soon. Since I made a big pot of the colcannon, I had a lot of leftovers, and I decided to try some in a taco shell. I try everything in a tortilla at least once. And this is just a spin on the potato tacos that we've made before, which, by the way, are delicious. I'm adding a little Louisiana hot sauce because I do feel like with the cabbage and everything in there, we need something else to go along with it. This is definitely tasty with the hot sauce. I do feel like it could use one other thing, and I'm not quite sure what it is. Feta maybe would be good, or any other kind of pungent cheese like goat cheese. I think more onions would also be good, and maybe even some olives. I know that sounds so strange in a taco, but if you'll lose the idea of what you think should be in a tortilla, then you can be more open to trying different flavor combinations. I decided to make potato cakes with this the following day, and for this I'm going to use 2 cups of the cold potato mixture, and I did put this in the freezer to get it extra cold before I made this, just so it would be firmer. Potato cakes are one of those super fun recipes that you can customize in so many ways, and I really haven't featured them on my channel yet for some reason. A lot of people make breakfast potato cakes with just mashed potatoes, salt, pepper, and egg, which is good too, but this should be especially delicious because they're so flavorful, and I'll just be using 1 egg as a binder. I'm just going to beat this up real quick before I add it into the potato mixture. I'll add a 1/4 cup of flour to these just to give them some extra bulk, but I was thinking how great it would be to add in a 1/4 cup of chickpea flour. Then you could make yourself a nice high protein patty. That would be an excellent choice to add into lunches. Maybe I'll have to invest in some chickpea flour or even making my own. I was glad to see that lots of you are excited to see some of my lunch content that I'll be making or work, just trying to come up with ideas for healthy and inexpensive lunches. Okay, this is all mixed together. It actually looks like potato salad now. But anyway, now I'm going to take this and throw it in the pan. It looks like I didn't get this on camera. Maybe I didn't have my camera turned on. But anyway, I used, I think, 1/4 cup measuring to make this size patty. And these are browning up quite nicely. I did decide that with one of these, I wanted to fry some cheese on one side of the patty. So I'm using this mixture that I picked up at Trader Joe's. It's got some Parmesan and Asiago cheese in it. And then I'm just adding it to the top, but I'm actually going to flip it over. I could have just set it aside in the pan and then added the potato patty on top. And I should probably pull these other patties out. I think these are plenty brown enough. If you've never had fried cheese before, I definitely recommend trying it. It's so good. I drain these on a paper towel to just absorb some of that extra oil. Okay, first I'll try the one on the left, and this one doesn't have the cheese. It's tasty and flavorful. I think to add another dimension to this, you could dip it in some very thinly sliced onions or diced onions, and then those onions would become kind of crispy when you fry it, and it would give it another dimension. I think that would be really good, but it's very tasty. Okay, let's try the cheese one. Okay, this is definitely a 10, but I kind of already figured it would be. It's perfect. You don't need to add anything to that. It's just a perfectly balanced bite. There you have it. I also did try adding chili garlic sauce onto these, and that was really good as well. My sons would probably enjoy these with a ranch sauce poured over the top, so that's always an option also. I want to thank everyone that expressed their support for me and a willingness to continue on with me in this next phase of my life. You guys mean a lot to me, and I love the community that we've built here. Thanks for watching. I'll see you soon.
Morning has broken, my windows are open. Wanna feel the wind blow through my hair. Which way do I follow? What happens tomorrow? I turn to you and hope you can guide the way. Sometimes I